And I think it's actually a huge miss to not do a video podcast. I think, I've asked several times on social media, like, okay, if you have an audio only podcast, what's keeping you from going video?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, it's the space, right?
Yep.
A lot of times it's the time it takes to edit, that is a valid thing. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times it's their space, they're working out of their house or, whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of times these are maybe like small businesses and things. But like, I think that's part of why we're like, yeah. And that's why we have a studio, because that way you can come and have something that looks great.
Yeah.
And looks professional.
Yep.
We can do a few things that can tailor it to maybe you, and then like you're off to the races. Yeah. There's literally nothing. We want to make it so nothing holds you back from having a video podcast, from having that content creation machine.
Yep. Absolutely.
All you have to do is show up and talk.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the big thing about podcasting in general is it can be DIY'd.
Yes, it can.
But we're not. Sure. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to take you, instead of like 20% of the way where you can DIY it and make it sound okay.
Yep.
Because so many podcasts nowadays are just people recording on their webcam.
Right.
And it is very hard to listen to and very hard to watch.
Yes.
But like what we want to do is we want to take you 80% of the way.
Yeah.
Where we offer you the space, we offer you the editing, we offer you the graphics, the high quality, all that stuff.
Yes.
We want to offer that all to you, where all you have to do is the 20% of what is your story.
Yes.
And even we do offer yearly planning services too,
so
on top of that.
If you're like, I know I want to do something, I'm ready to, I just don't know how, talk with us. I would love to walk you through, like, how do you plan out this content? How do you figure out what you should say and how to say it and all these different things? So yeah, we totally would help you even with that piece.
Yeah.
Again, we want to take everything that is getting in your way so you can just show up and talk. Bring your guest, bring whoever your co-host is, and have a conversation.
Yeah. And I think, let's speak real quick. I think we didn't mention this earlier in our story, but let's speak to our credentials a little bit of why this is important to us. Because, like, from my side of things, I worked at one of the largest churches in the nation as their video technical director, and I got to create content all over the world for hundreds of thousands of people. It was really amazing. Got to work with some of the gear that I was drooling over in college and got to really create this awesome stuff. And then after I worked at that church, I then got to work in a ad agency, basically. It was a video production studio, and working with them to create ads for multi-billion-dollar brands. And I really saw this cool niche of like, oh, but there's a space for this video podcasting thing. And so I know how to create really engaging video content, and I know how to create really interesting storylines and make it look really, really good. But then from the other side of things, you come from more the creative side of space.
Yeah. Well, and so I used to work at an explainer video company.
Like the premier one in Cincinnati.
Right. And it was a huge experience. I was primarily, at that point, in the, project manager space. I dipped my toes into, some creative direction and different things like that. I worked on some live action projects, a lot of animation projects, and then kind of moving into the role I'm in now, I kind of touch everything. And so really what the explainer video company, and then even my role right now, is as I've been thinking about things, like, yes, I definitely, this is where Brian's expertise comes in, because I really want high quality content. But what I truly want is to create understanding and provoke action. And because, being understood is kind of like core to, counseling has told me, is very core to who I am. And I think that's why I like video podcasting, is because you can, over time, show more and more of your personality, of your brand, of all these different things that in a like, yeah, it gets a little intimidating if you're not used to it, speaking in front of cameras and there's lights and things. But especially if you're like talking and having a conversation, there's things that people like, they can just talk on and on and on and on about.
Yeah.
And we want to be a space for people to just talk about what makes your brand, your thing awesome, and just go to town on it. And what are the misconceptions that your audience has? All those different things. So yeah, I love helping people think through the content piece and making sure that it's not just a pretty thing.
Well, that's a big part of what Devising Good does too, is you're kind of like a creative concepting agency, basically. Right. And you're bringing those skills to the podcast studio to say like, hey, what does a year's worth of content look like?
Yes.
And how can we creatively plan all this stuff out? Like I think that's going to be super valuable for our people.